And AI, of course, is a key theme of a new report just released that ranks the world's top corporations on their resilience. It focuses on three sectors: finance, autos and consumer goods companies. The report's author says the top-ranking organisations are prioritising innovation to meet the growing expectations of today's customers. Let's bring in at this point then Howard Yu, Professor at the IMD Business School, for the take on this list, this ranking, of course, dropping today. Howard, thanks for joining us. What stood out to you then in terms of the resilience or the lack of resilience across these corporations?
Well, competition really heats up these days, the way I see it. So it is ever more difficult to stay on top of the ranking. And second thing we notice is across all industry, whether it is FMCG, fast consumer goods, all the way to auto or banking, every one of these sectors feels like a technology sector these days.
Interesting. And you're talking, how close is the correlation between innovation and success? Because there's a risk for these companies as well. They have to play catch up. They have to be seen to be reacting to the AI revolution. There's a capex spend there. There's a lot of uncertainty in terms of how you actually implement these models and these products and the layering that goes on, how you get the teams across your corporations to integrate this stuff. There's a risk, clearly. Is there a link? Is there a clear link between innovation and success at the corporate level?
Absolutely. But one needs to be careful to keep an eye on the bottom line at the same time. So at IMD, the way we think about becoming future ready is you do a 360 assessment, almost like an MRI scanning patient, but this time is scanning the health of the business. So you need to looking at the near-term profit growth, revenue growth, cash and debt ratio to make sure they have a fortress balance sheet, just like JP Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon would talk about. Meanwhile, they invest aggressively in the future, R&D spend, new innovation, whether they could scale this new innovation or not. So that's the approach you could assess companies these days.
There's a couple of big names that stand out from this report, Howard. I'll zoom in on rather unexpectedly, of course, Tesla. Look, that top of the list for you, interesting in terms of the EV space. On some levels, not surprising, but on other levels, it is surprising. We know they've been cutting prices. They're challenged in the Chinese market. We know EV growth is slowing. The stock is down about 30% year to date. How sustainable is the leadership at Tesla and their ability to continue to invest at this level on things like R&D?
Well, your observation is spot on, Tom, because for the last few years, Tesla advantage is just unparalleled. This year, for the first time, its advantage is basically almost completely eroded, except for perhaps AI. What we are seeing in the report is BYD and other car players, in terms of the relative score, they really have improved dramatically this year, meaning the top has been crowded out. The biggest implication is the smaller player, the lower on our ranking, they become increasingly vulnerable. Because after all, that EV transition and AI and software requires so much capex investment. If you're not big enough, it's very hard to make that transition.
Howard, on the EV sector, I mean, how much consolidation do you expect to see, whether it's in China or globally? Are we at a moment where we're going to see rapid consolidation in this space?
I think that's it. I mean, in China, we already see a lot of these smaller EV players struggle big time. Of course, you have companies like BYD still surging, but even Li Auto, they just came out from earning announcement, they see their profit plunge. In essence, we are facing the tsunami of industry consolidation. In a few years, you see Stellantis emerge by consolidating Chrysler, Porsche, and PSA. That is just almost like a primer of what is coming in the coming years, I would imagine.
In the financial sector, Howard, you've got MasterCard, you've got HSBC, you've got JP Morgan, you've already touched on them, all near the top of the list. What are those companies doing right around innovation? Because you speak to some small fintech startups here in London and they say, we're going to challenge these incumbents. But so far, it seems they're getting the mix right.
Yes, I mean, it's a mixed message, interestingly, in the world of finance, because I think leading players such as MasterCard and Visa, they really have understood in finance is always frenemies. Sometimes you're friends, sometimes you're enemy, and you compete and cooperate. What Master Visa, in a large extent, DBS and JP Morgan Chase, they have done right, is to opening up the infrastructure to embrace open banking, to open up the infrastructure so that other fintech innovator can use their existing system to go embed the financing in another situation. So in a way, this is how these existing player keep their product attractive. In short, if you cannot outrun fintech innovator, you let them join your system.
Howard, one name that stood out to me from this list in the consumer product space is L'Oreal. And maybe this is my ignorance, but I hadn't expected them to be leading on innovation. But you're saying this cosmetics maker is right at the cutting edge of technology, innovation, implementing things like AI. What are they doing?
Oh my gosh, L'Oreal is really quite a remarkable way of thinking about selling seemingly low-tech product, right? Color cosmetic, eyeliner, but the way you're looking from the digital supply chain all the way to engaging consumer is what the future e-commerce would look like. For one instance, they have this augmented reality app allowing consumer to try out different, hair color or color cosmetic, and they see the conversion rate triple. And then they put this technology to all brand under L'Oreal, whether it's high-end Lancome or all the way to Sephora, their third-party distribution channel. So they scale this emerging technology to engage consumer around the clock, to understand what they need before they start creating the next blockbuster. I think that mindset is so pronounced. So yes, you're right. It's the technology companies so happen to make hair color, for instance.
OK, a tech company is essentially selling lipstick. Howard Yu, professor at the IMD Business School. Thank you very much indeed, with a deep dive on how some of these big corporates are adjusting in terms of innovation, what they're doing right and what they are doing wrong in some cases as well. Howard, thank you for the analysis and the context.